Hello, I am Sensei Kevlar. Thank you so much for joining me for another dojo. I am really excited for this, our last day of instruction. Today we're going to be talking about the master plan, which is really just a recap of the existing plan and sort of a formalization of it. And we're going to talk about ways to automate that planning and automate the plan creation in terms of making strategies that actually work. And we're going to talk about, well, we'll see where the conversation goes. For now, though, let's start with the master plan. So far, this just looks like a recap of everything that we have talked about so far, put down on paper, and made a study for us. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we always plan for profitability. Doing anything less means that we're accepting loss, and that's not acceptable. That's not part of the plan. Using things like stop losses in order to control when the markets are going down instead of dollar cost averaging, that's planning for loss. Pure and simple. So we're going to plan for profitability. And if you spot a plan that doesn't have you being profitable, well, don't trade that plan. Just don't put your money in. Just don't. It's simple. It's so easy. Number 2, plan the trade. Trade the plan. Like I just said, if you don't see how the plan makes you profitable, don't trade it. This is a big part of having the ability to backtest and having the ability to, create your opportunities in terms of where the markets will go and where the markets will take you. If you are in a market and it's not making you money, make a better plan, like making money in a different market. Number 3, small position sizes. This is really about informing your bottom correctly. Because if you start small at the top, then you will have room to grow at the bottom. And if you are planning correctly, you will know what that small position size can be. Up until now, when we're doing our planning, we start with a specific position size being a specific amount. But when we get to the bottom and we see that that amount is too small, can we then adjust that amount by what we want it to be and then adjust the plan all the way up just by multiplying the numbers? Well, yes, we can. If we are planning and we are starting with small position sizes, then it's easy to increase those position sizes as we get lower. It's much easier to do. It's much easier to start 5xing instead of 3xing. It's much easier to start, start with a number that has us getting in more when we know that we're going to be having more at the bottom as a result, and what that does to us. Small position sizes enable us to be agile, enable us to respond to the market. Number 4, buy down that position. Okay. Apply your dollar cost averaging to a losing position. Number 5, position correctly for the opportunity. Okay. What this means is that given the opportunity, you might apply a different allocation. The same allocation at the bottom might not be appropriate for all markets. You might be bullish on Ether, but think that Bitcoin's not doing so hot. Plan your allocations appropriately. More to the point, you might figure out that you have a plan that has you, if you start your planning and you're looking at the top of the market and you're doing your planning off of where the top of the market was, and you're planning all the way to the bottom, and the bottom is, close to where you're at, and you're finding yourself having difficulty figuring out a position at this low place, well, maybe that's a sign. Maybe the sign is that the plan at the bottom is valid, right? That if that's the case, then you should be taking up a large position size. Because according to the plan has you at the bottom at this much. We'll go ahead and buy this much. There's your starting position. Now, according to the plan, you would have been dollar cost averaging all the way down, but you don't have to do that. You can simply buy in at the bottom. Or if you have a large position already and you're just starting trading, do a mental reset. Say, okay, this is my new start position. I can now position with this position. Come and see what position your position is in. Which brings us to number 6. What position your position is in? Well, you should know that too. Why? Because you have scheduled your allocations and distributions. Okay. What that means is that if you know that something is going up or down over a time frame, and you're going to be buying when it goes down and selling when it goes up, well, you know what your schedule of allocation and distribution is. It's this when it goes down and this when it goes up. Number 7, automate as much of this as you can because it's exhausting. Okay. Automation is key here because figuring out, what your portfolio size is, making all of these decisions on the fly, keeping track of all these numbers is just way too much. Let a computer do what a computer is good at once you have figured out what the actual thing to do is. Computers can help you, and we'll be talking about that next week. Number 8, use TA and FA to modify the plan. Okay. Number 9, diversify. Diversification. And diversified. How much money do you plan to lose when the exchange goes away? How much money do you plan to keep so you can keep going? Those two things that I just said, that's really about maintaining and, keeping that diversification, figuring out how many opportunities to get into, how many you can and how many you will. That's about maintaining a balanced portfolio. Okay. And the other part of what I said there about what happens when the exchange goes away, let's plan for long term, plan for change. Okay. This is a really critical one, and I want to spend just a minute on it. Planning for long term, I've talked about. I haven't really talked enough about planning for change, I don't think. How can we plan for change? Can we have a plan in place for when news occurs and how that modifies our schedule? Absolutely we can, if we plan to. How can we plan to be around and modifying change when change occurs? Well, one way is news. Get the news subscription on your phone. Get the notifications to ping you on your phone. Get the notifications to email you when the news occurs, when the change occurs. Whatever the change is, make a plan for it in your life. This is a lifestyle. This is very much a lifestyle. Finally, the last one, and I really just haven't mentioned this enough. Don't go alone. This is a strategy that works best in a team. This is a strategy where people contributing to discovery, people contributing to the trade, people contributing to morale, people contributing to understanding, people contributing to teaching, people contributing at all enhances your opportunities. All of that contribution enhances your opportunities. And the more you contribute, the better this place becomes to be a opportunity generation. A place for opportunity generation. Working together as a team doesn't mean working with me. It means working with people who you can trust to listen to and then verify what it is they're saying. It means socializing your wins and losses. It means creating the opportunities to multiply your entries and exits. That's about social teamwork. Those multiplication factors where the market keeps going up and up and up, that's about social teamwork. That's about spreading the message. That's about being in a, about getting the message out there. That's about Twitter and Facebook and all those other things. That's what drives those things. News cycles drive these things. Don't go alone. Work together. Work as a team. Remember that this is one of those things where we're all fighting to achieve distributed consensus. And that consensus is reached when the market goes sideways. It just goes zip right across the way. So the fact that the market never goes sideways should tell you how often consensus is reached. And how we can turn that motion of lack of consensus to our advantage by knowing that eventually the other consensus will have its day. But this is a long-term plan. This is not something that works overnight. This is not something that works in a month. This is not something that you can just, go 3 months and be assured of making it. It doesn't work that way. The fact of the reality is that time in the market is required, not timing the market. And all that time, you must fight and constantly strive to maintain a balanced blockfolio through constant diversification and using TA and FA to modify the plan while still keeping it from becoming absolutely exhausting by using automation to do things like schedule your allocations and distributions, which position you correctly for the opportunity, which allow you to buy down your position because you started with a small position size because you planned the trade and traded the plan, and that's how you plan for profitability. Now, how can we do something like use automation to schedule our allocations and distributions? Well, it requires a little bit more math on our part, which is okay. We shouldn't be afraid of math at this point. Let's pull up a chart. Okay. Let's make some assumptions about our plan. Let's give ourselves a little bit more room here. Let's take away some of these indicators. Let's just focus on some basic truths about our plan, rather than how to best optimize it for just 1 minute. Bring in 0 here. Let's go ahead and paint 0. Yeah. There it is right there. Death Valley. Okay. If this is how we're allocating, if we're saying that my allocation scenario, according to my plan, has me allocating somewhere between $800 and let's say $50, because that's seems to be, you know, a popular number right now. Okay. Let's take a look at this allocation scenario for just 1 second. What have we really said? What we've really said is that we want to start buying here and dollar cost average here and here and here and here. What that means is that we get the opportunity, if we're buying in here, to do so right now, or we're tracking our profits along some profit line. Sorry, these ads. We're tracking our profit along some profit line because we've been dollar cost averaging, or look, we really just bought at the top and we've let it sink away from us, and this really is our profit. This really is our profit line right here. It's the current price. Nothing we can do about it because that's how much we have right now, right? And we're trying to, you know, we're trying to scrape it back up to this point right here, right? This is the plan that we're at. What we can say about this line right here is that this line represents a spectrum of allocation. At this point right here, you know, somewhere just above 400, we're at the halfway point. We're at 50% of our allocation. Okay? And if we know what our allocation is, at the bottom here, we can figure out what half is. And if we know the function along this spectrum, which computes our allocation at any given point, if that's a 2x, 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 then we can compute our allocation given our point in time, our percentage, you know, 425 here, our 50% line, and that will tell us how much we should have bought. This is a basic interpolation where we take this function and apply it, this function of doubling up, or maybe it's tripling up, and we apply it along this whole spectrum, and we arrive at an output for how much x, where x is some point along the spectrum, is. If we just use linear interpolation, then here we would have 50% of our allocation. We would just have bought half of how much we intended to buy, because it's halfway down. Here we're at, like, you know, 90% allocated. We're just trading these little amounts up and down, up and down, up and down. But let's take a look at what happens when we do that. Okay. If that's the case, and we're applying our strategy from earlier, this one right here, then we have our function for doing this, and we can do this all in a completely automated way. Here's how. What we can do is we can say, all right, if this is our 50% line, let's assume that, you know, the market is right here for the moment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create Let's get rid of some of these other confusing lines right here. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create, here's my 50% line at, 425. 425 right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, if I'm here in the market, and I come up to here, I'm in the profit, clearly. And I come down to here in the market, it must be time to buy. So this is how much to buy is an interpolation of how much we bought given our plan over this time frame. How much this motion is right here is how much profit we're going to make when the market moves. Okay? So now look at what happens, right? Is the market comes up and gives us profit. Well, at that time, what we would have done is we would have sold some, and we would have marched this whole thing up a little bit. Just like the trailing stop. And here it would have come down, and we would have bought some, and we would have marched this whole thing down a little bit. And here it would have come down more, and we would have bought more. And here it would have come down. Need to get rid of that line. Here it would have come down and bought more. And now we're just waiting for it to come up to here for us to sell. And so long as we input this plan right here, this number right here, this bottom right here, and this top right here, and this function right here, are we dollar cost averaging 2x, 3x, 4x? Then we know how to compute this number right here along any point along this line. Then we know how much we should be owning at this point right here at any point along this line. And then all we have to do is wait for the market to move along our interpolation. And the strategy will make us money. So creating a plan just got reduced to finding the upper and the lower limits of the market. That's how easy this became. So long as we can program this, and we can program this, and we can program this right here, this becomes an automation.
When water is all you leave behind, there's so much.
We call this a straddle. Because what you're doing is you're basically saying, I'm going to straddle the market. If it goes down, I'm going to buy more. If it goes up, I'm going to sell more. If it goes down, I'm going to buy more. If it goes up, I'm going to sell more. What this does is this captures sideways markets. And if you tighten this up correctly and get this in a nice little groove, it'll sit there and make you the money on these sideways markets. Okay? Then what happens is then we come down and it does this and we dollar cost average in more. And then it'll sit there and do one of these and make you money. Or it'll come down and we'll buy more because you allocated. And it'll sit here and do one of these. Or it'll start doing one of these and it'll sell you all the way up to here. It'll keep selling you higher and higher for profit Okay? And then if the market comes all the way up to here and it's selling you all the way up to here, well, as soon as it comes down, whatever you configure it for, right? If you're selling at 700, as soon as it comes down 600 again, buy it back. How much? Interpolation of this function over this range. So what the straddle does is the straddle automates plan making. Now, if you think about what we've been doing so far, you can do this in a more manual way. You can put your specific buy lines right here, right here, right here. These are the places I'm going to buy. I'm going to buy here, I'm going to buy here, I'm going to buy here. We need a fourth one down here. We call this a pivot. Because what you want to do is you want to put your pivot lines, the place where you think the market is going to pivot, on specific lines. Okay? So one form of automating the plan is to pick your pivot lines. One form of automating the plan is to simply straddle a range over an interpolated amount. If you can do this, or you can do that, it makes things very easy. Because all you have to do is look at the market in the past and go, well, this is a line, this is a line, this is a line, right? This is a line right here. This is the line, this is the line. And if you had done that, you know, it would have worked here. It would have, you know, not worked so well here, and you'd be buying and buying, and that's the bear market, taking things away from you. Now you're waiting for this opportunity. However, if you had worked a straddle through this, the straddle, if it had been tight enough, would have taken you in, you know, would have taken you in a little bit here and taken you out a little bit here and taken you in a little bit here and taken you out a little bit here. It would have taken you in more here and it would have taken you out a little bit here if you had it tight enough. Especially when you have these sideways channels, right? You can literally be buying on one day and selling the next when these things move in the sideways channels, right? Here I was buying one day, and here I was selling the next. Because that's how tight my straddle is to capture these motions. And I'm just interpolating along this line for my amounts. Still following a plan, still keeping my allocation. I know exactly how much I'll have at this point in the market. $50, I know exactly how much I will have spent on this market, on this opportunity. A student is asking, does Trader Plan set the straddle? No, you need to set the straddle. Automation can take a guess at what a straddle might be by doing something clever, like looking at the 6-month high and low. But what you need to do is you need to come in here and look at the chart and figure out what your risk profile is against $50. Because here's the risk. Here's the risk in a straddle, is if you say I want to be allocated, you know, for X, and that's my max allocation, and my max allocation at X is at $100, oh, what happens when it goes to $50? The answer is you planned poorly. The answer is you should have planned for $50 beyond 100. And you should have planned for 25 beyond 50. Pray you don't need it. Vitalik, help us all. You have to come in here and say, I really believe that the bottom is 50, and while we're at 100, I'm playing it safe by saying 50, and I believe we'll bounce off of 100 and go up. Okay? Or, as a smart trader, you're saying, I'm going to set that to 25. I'm going to set that to 10. And I'm going to set my upper to 400, and then when it gets to 200, I'm going to reassess that 400 upper. Because that's part of my plan. There. I just made a plan to change the plan. I'm setting my upper for 400 today, but I'm reassessing that when it gets to 200 tomorrow. Okay? And then we'll trade along this interpolation. And you can see that this is a much different interpolation, because here's the 50% mark right here in this interpolation, whereas in this interpolation the 50% mark was up here. So you have to decide that. That's on you. How much you want to allocate to this strategy is on you. You must tell it that number, your allocation. How much you think the high is, you must tell it that number. How much you think the low is, you must tell it that number, and you must take responsibility for having told it that number. It's on you. What you choose these numbers to be makes you the trader you are. And you have to be responsible for your portfolio and your strategy making and the decisions you make with regard to your strategy. Now, if I simply told you, well, look, guys, you just interpolate along a range given a maximum allocation, and look, you make money, you'd think I'd full of shit. But if you can't do this on paper, then don't automate it. For fuck's sake. Right? If you cannot see the way that this will make you money on paper, then do not put your money in and trade that plan. The whole point of being able to do this on paper is so that you can create your own opportunities. And you're in control of your portfolio. You're in control of your strategies. You're in control of your plans. You're in control of what markets you're buying into. You're in control of how you're balancing your portfolio. You're in control of every single aspect of everything except the actual executions of the trades, because you're leaving that up to automation. So you better be in control of that automation, and you better have a damn good understanding of what that automation is actually doing. When you tell it that this is the high and this is the low, and then I want a heavy interpolation, I want a 5x interpolation along this for a maximum allocation here. You better tell it, you better understand what that means when it tells you, well, guys, that means you're only going to have this much at the top if you have this much, if you're telling me you want this much at the bottom. You need to understand the process that you go through to create the plan and how it makes you profitable. Because if you can't make yourself profitable doing it by hand, do not automate. If you can't do it on paper, don't do it for real. If you can't do it with your own, going in there and making the trades in the exchange, don't trust automation to do it for you. It's ridiculous. Nobody should do that. The only way that you should be looking to automation is if you have a problem, which is your wrist is cramping from going in here and making these stupid trades along this stupid allocation interpolation and tracking your stupid DCA. And you're just tired of it and you're looking for a solution. And I encourage you to find the right solution. It doesn't have to be the one that I happen to have built. It's called Trader Plan. There's plenty of solutions out there. I think it was Coin-Folio will do a lot of your DCAing for you. There's lots and lots and lots of good solutions. There's Gunbot. There's what is it? I forget the name of it, but there's lots of good trading bots out there that will do DCA for you. If you find one that does this for you and it works for you, please use it. Don't use mine. With regards to using Trader Plan, I want to speak a few words on that right now because that's what's coming up next week. Actually, you doing this with our portfolios and making plans if you choose to. It's your portfolio. Nobody's forcing your hand. I'm trying to create an opportunity for you if you choose. All of the informational tools in Trader Plan are completely free forever. You come in here and use them all you want. You can DCA your portfolio. You can use all the analysis tools, absolutely everything. The only thing that actually does cost money, and there's an initial free trial, is running the strategies, running the actual trades themselves. That money goes to the dojo, it goes directly into my pocket, and it goes to supporting running Trader Plan. If you're not making money with your automation, don't pay for it. If you feel like you're getting into it and it's starting to make sense, but you still need more time and you're serious about putting the time into figuring out the automation, come to me and I'm happy to comp you as much time as you need. If you are not turning over tons of money with your automation, I literally don't want your money. You can have as much time as you need to figure out how to make the automation work for you. The last thing that I want it to do for you is lose you money. And if you're pumping money into a subscription, it's losing you money. That doesn't make sense. This is not a sales pitch. This works best when we work as a team. Creating the opportunities together, creating the strategies together, figuring out these pivot points together, amplifies our success, amplifies our opportunities. Sharing the trades, sharing the charts, sharing the drawings, sharing the findings, sharing the indicators, amplifies our opportunities. The more that people do that, the more success we will have as a team. The more that we socialize our winnings, the more people will want to win with us. And so in January, so next week is the last week of Dojo. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be going over actually creating plans, actually doing the trading, actually unleashing the beast. Friday, we're doing Defense Against the Dark Arts. After next week, we're shutting down Dojo, and we're just going to continue trading until January when we're starting it up again, and we're going to be inviting more people in. The reason to invite more people in is to increase our chances of success. And I want this to be a place where people are already being successful. And if you're not being successful, if you are not turning over money hand over fist, don't pay a thing for that subscription. Don't you dare. DM me and say, hey, can I have a little bit longer? I'll say, here's another month. And after that month's over, say, hey, can I have a little longer? You say, here's another month. We'll just keep doing that. I want this to be an opportunity for you to make money. I'm not doing this to put money in my pocket. I'm doing it to put money in your pocket. So I hope that you'll stick with me for the next lesson on Friday, which is Defense Against the Dark Arts. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be exploring the darker aspects of the tricks that exchanges pull in order to make money, and the offerings that they create in order to entice users into giving their money to them. It's really ugly. And I want to show you what it looks like and how it works. And my hope is that you'll have learned enough in this to recognize why it's a bad opportunity. And you won't be tempted. And maybe you will, and that's the trader that you are, and that's fine. But I hope at the very least that you've learned how successful traders operate at this point. They very, very much plan for that long term. They very, very much plan for this sideways motion to be in this sideways channel for a while and make all their money there. Maybe for a year. All the way down in here in the doldrums for all the way till 2020, where we finally see the bull run again. That's long-term planning. Getting that straddle set up, sitting here doing the motions as it sits here and peters off into $50 range. Turning over that ether into more and more and more and more and more and more ether. So that in 2020, when you've got all of that ether, holy moly. Oh my. And I'm not talking about pumping